Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started this morning. Thank you for joining me this morning on a beautiful summer day in Seattle here. I am Mary Pat O'Neill, and I'm here to do the Find Your Fit College Boot Camp. Today is session 2 on completing your college application. And I explained this on Tuesday when we talked about how to create a college list. But just so you know, this session is being recorded, and everybody who registered for this boot camp will receive the recordings and handouts. With the holiday next week, it probably will be sometime midweek that it will be sent out. Let's see, just a little background on me. I am an independent college counselor. I have a private practice. And back in 2016, I started volunteering my time with the Lake Washington Schools Foundation and created the Find Your Fit program. And the reason that I did it is because there's a lot of inequity in education, and then it bothers me. I'm a first-generation student myself. And so this is my way of giving back. I'm completely a volunteer. Any of you who donated to the foundation for attending this program, I thank you. The foundation does fabulous work. I get none of it. It all goes to the foundation. So on Tuesday, the session was on how to create a balanced college list. And hopefully you attended and you understand why it's so important. So once you have a college list, then you can start working on your college applications. But unless you know where you're going, you can't. And it's because, as I said earlier, colleges all do things different. They use different application platforms. They have different requirements. And as I always say, remember, everybody's different. Your best friend might want something. You might have had an older child who went a certain path and your other child's doing a different path. That's normal. We're humans. We're all different. We're unique. We're fabulous. And embrace that. Please do not try to copy what other people are doing. Be you. All right. So I always want to remind people that the application process is not rocket science. It may seem confusing. It's not. My joke is always, I could not help people if it was, super confusing. There are a lot of moving pieces. And as I'll give you my contact information through the foundation, I'm always available. I have lots of office hours and different things where I'm available, or you can always just email me with any questions. I always hear from families. I'm happy to help. Okay, so there are 5 possible things that a college will ask for in a college application. And I say possible because it depends on the college. As I mentioned the other day, there's about 1,900 four-year public and private colleges in the United States. And quite frankly, my job would be so much easier if everybody would just have the same requirements, same deadlines, all that stuff. And for you rising seniors who are working on your applications, you're going to say, yeah, it certainly would. Unfortunately, they all do things differently. So when I say possible, some colleges only want one thing. Some colleges want 5 and any arrangement in between. But I'm going to go through them all and hopefully you'll understand it better. I showed you this slide on Tuesday when I talked about the different application platforms. Again, it depends on the college. There's the Common App, the Coalition, University of California, Cal State, and it totally depends. Know that today I'm going to be focusing on the Common App because that is what is most widely used. University of Washington, Washington State, all the Washington State and public universities use the Common App. But just know that if you're applying to the University of California system or the Cal State, there are resources available. Use your search engine, type in, how to complete the University of California application. Look on YouTube. There's, fabulous videos, lots of information available on how to complete them. And you can always reach out to an admissions office if you have questions too. So anyways, so as I said, I will be using the Common App today for my demonstration. And if you have colleges that are on the Common App, you can actually start that application now. What happens, you're limited to what you can do. There are multiple tabs on the Common App, and the 3rd tab is called Common App, and it is a data section. That's where you should start, and I'll explain why. So right now, if you go into the Common App and you pull up information, the information that is there is for fall 23 admissions, which is just in a couple months. So that information that's there is from last year's seniors. And it's very possible that everything's going to stay the same, but it's also possible that they could change things. They could change their testing policy. They could change their prompts. They could change their deadlines even. That happens. So you don't want to go too deep. You can work completing the data section of the Common App, which again is that third tab, and it takes 1 to 2 hours to complete it. It's not easy. Well, it is easy, but it takes time. And what happens is toward the end of July, so about a month from now, the Common App will shut down, and they notify, they have, when you log in, they go, oh, we're shutting down on whatever day it's going to be. And they shut down, and what they do is they clear out everything that has to do with fall 23 admissions. And then they update it for fall 24 admissions, which is you guys. So on August 1st, the Common App goes live for the class of 24. So that's when you can start moving forward on things. So, and just so you know, regarding application platforms, there can be colleges that accept multiple platforms. If you check, it might say, oh, we accept the Common App, we accept the Coalition App, we accept the Universal App. You just pick one, you don't have to do 3. And quite frankly, the Common App is the easiest to use, in my opinion, and I think most students would agree with that. So, okay. All right. So first of all, the Common App is a great source of just some good basic information. I did screenshots today instead of trying to go live. As you guys know, I don't do very well with technology. So this is information available. This is under a tab on the Common App called My Colleges. There's a search tool. You add colleges. Once you have your list, you can add colleges. So this is the University of Michigan. And just some, you can see it shows you the deadlines. Again, these are all for last year. It talks about, let's see, standardized test policy. It tells you what are the writing requirements and things like that. And so there's just good information there. So if you need just basic information, that's where you're going to go. Being organized in the application for college applications is very important. And I'm a huge believer in students taking control and being in charge of this, but not with this. This is an area where I think parents can be helpful. I've seen students drop the ball on something, miss a deadline. So if there are any parents there, or if you're a student, just, it's not a bad idea to have somebody just make sure that you're organized and on top of everything, because there are a lot of moving pieces with this. Okay, so as I said, there's 5 possible things that a college can ask for. And the first one we're going to talk about is the high school transcript. And just so you know, this one's never optional. This is the one piece you are always going to be asked for. And if you remember that scattergram that I showed the other day about what colleges consider important in the admissions process, for most schools, many schools, this is what they're really going to be focusing on. This is what they care about. So what I would recommend before you start your college applications is make sure that you have a copy of your transcript. It's an unofficial transcript. You can go into Skyward. I don't know if they're shut down for the season, for the summer or not, but you will need a copy of your transcript, or if you have report cards, those would work too. So in the state of Washington, our public schools use an unweighted GPA. And what this means is that there is a 4.0 system. An A gets you a 4, a B plus gets you a 3.3, a B gets you a 3. And they show it on your report card. It shows what the different GPAs are. And that's just it, okay? We use unweighted GPAs. Now, in other states, high schools might use weighted GPAs. And people freak out about this. They're like, well, we're in Washington. What should I recalculate my GPA? No, don't recalculate your GPA. Because what happens, and all a weighted GPA means is if a student took a rigor class, and that's typically an AP class, an IB class, If a student got an A, instead of it being a 4.0, it's a 5.0. If a student got a B, instead of a 3.0, it's a 4.0. Honors classes, again, it depends on the school and how they approach it. But for honors classes, some colleges will give a 0.5 bump up. Again, it all depends on the college. But what happens when a college receives a student's transcript, they go through and they recalculate it based on their own methodology and how they want to weight things or not weight things. And so you don't have to worry about it because they recalculate it and they do their own methodology. So just know that. And the other thing too is on your college application, and again, we're talking about the Common App here today, it asks you, what is your cumulative GPA? And this is through the end of junior year. So that's why you need to know that number. At the end of junior year, what is your cumulative GPA? And you will put in that number, whatever it is. And then there's two boxes. And one says, is that a weighted GPA or is it unweighted? And you're going to say unweighted. So they know this is an unweighted GPA. You're not at any disadvantage. They all do their own recalculations and it's fine. And know that sometimes students do have things to explain on a college application. And there's a spot for it. It just says, hey, is there anything else about you we should know? I would keep it simple. Don't make any excuses, but know that, if you had difficulty in a class or you're having mental health issues and it impacted your grades and then things got better, whatever, you can explain things like that. Okay, so here's a screenshot. This is what I was talking about, the different tabs on the Common App. You can see there's a dashboard, My Colleges, Common App, College Search, Financial Aid Resources. So as I said at the beginning, where you want to start is the Common App tab because it's the data section. This is what you get started on. And you can work on it. You don't have to worry about that August 1st deadline when they shut things down. When you log in on August 1st, they're going to say, hey, you filled this out. Do you want to keep the information? And you're going to say, yes, I want to keep the information. Anyways, so part of this, and again, this is where I know it gets confusing, but some colleges want students to self-report their transcript. And there's a whole form, show your 9th grade classes, 10th grade, and you put them all in there and they will ask you, what classes are you taking senior year? Okay, so they want to know that. You won't have any grades, but they want to know what classes you're taking. And what this is demonstrating, it says, this is the courses and grades section. Here is a list of your current colleges that require courses and grades. And this is just my sample account. And these are just colleges I have. And it says Loyola Marymount, University of Oregon, University of California. If I scrolled further down, it would say University of Washington. You have to self-report your transcript, okay? But then there's one that says not used, American, Baylor, Emory, Seattle U, whatever. So what that means when they're saying they're not using your self-reported transcript, it's because your school counselor will be sending in your transcript and they're going to use the school transcript. And again, just so you know, because you self-report it, if you get accepted to a college and you accept their offer of admission, when you're done with high school, they're going to request your official transcript. So you need to be honest and transparent. If you lie about anything, they're going to see it on your final transcript and then they could say, bye-bye, we don't want you anymore. So just know you may need your transcript. So here's some thoughts. Most colleges are going to look at your transcript from 9th grade through 11th grade. However, as I said, everybody does things differently. University of California and Cal State calculates the GPA based on what they call A through G courses. And University of California and Cal State use the A through G classes taken after 9th grade through 11th grade, with the exception of Cal Poly, which does use 9th grade. Then this is what I'm saying. It's very confusing. Don't ask me questions about all this stuff. That's why you want to go and use the resources. And then if you're applying to Canadian colleges, they look at the grades of academic courses taken in junior and senior year. They have specific, it's not all of them. They like to take, I think they call them there's a term for it, but they want to see like your hardest classes that you're taking and they take a look at those grades. And this is, again, I'm not going into detail here, but this is what A through G courses are. You can see A is history and science, B is English, blah, 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 blah. So like one class you won't see on there, electives aren't on there necessarily, or PE classes, which are required in the state of Washington, but they don't care about your PE grade. So if you didn't do well in PE, you don't have to worry about it necessarily. But you can put those someplace else on the California applications. But again, this is a Common App one. Then Running Start students, I always get this question. Okay, if you are a Running Start student, you are still going to apply as a freshman. You have to do everything that a freshman has to do. You are not a transfer student. You are a freshman. And what happens is after you've applied, you've been accepted to colleges, you choose which college you're going to attend. Your Running Start transcript, the one from the college, is going to be sent to the college you're attending, and they determine what credits that they're going to accept. And they may say, oh, you are starting as a junior, you're starting as a second year, first quarter. Again, it depends on the school, but you will get those credits. And typically students get the majority of them or all of them, but you're still applying as a freshman. So just know that. And I will say this later on, but yes, senior grades count. They count a lot. If you tell them you're going to take certain classes, and then once you get your college applications in, you're like, yeah, man, I am dropping these AP classes, I am done. Or you stop caring and your grades go down the toilet. They see that stuff and they can say, you know what, we have changed our mind about your admission. So senior year grades do count. Okay, now let's talk about test scores. That's the ACT and the SAT. And this has changed so dramatically. Prior to COVID, pretty much every school required test scores, and now they don't. Schools continue to be test optional or test blind. So in the state of Washington and the state of California, they do not look at test scores for admissions. They don't look at them. UW doesn't look at AP scores, okay? They don't care about that. They look at other things, but they don't look at your test scores. And that's pretty much true for schools in the West. Again, it depends on the college. You can always ask admissions if they're test optional. You can say, do you prefer test scores, or is there an advantage given to students who have test scores? And there are certainly schools that do like them. University of Michigan, certainly very selective school. They love test scores. Some colleges have gone forward and said, we're not test optional anymore. That's over and past, like MIT, Georgetown, public universities in Georgia and Florida. So if you're like, oh, I want to apply to Georgia Tech or whatever, you have to have test scores. So just know that it depends. Colleges accept both. They don't have a preference. So just again, pay attention to their policy. And if you're not sure, call them and ask them, but it's usually on their website, or as I showed you at the beginning, on a college's first page on the Common App, there's always a test policy. And if you click on that link, it takes you directly to their website. So here's just some of my thoughts. If a school is test optional and not highly selective, so I'd say, I don't know, maybe has a 40% or higher acceptance rate, I probably wouldn't worry about testing. For more selective schools or programs, if your test scores are strong, I would certainly submit them, at least in the 50th percentile. And to find that out, again, College Board, college data, they will show you what the 50th percentile. So if you're in that 50th percentile, great. If you're above it, fabulous. If you're below it, you may not want to send it. If you are submitting test scores, you need to pay attention to the requirements of the school. And what I mean by that is, these are all those little moving pieces that I referenced. Some colleges say, hey, just self-report your scores. And so you can self-report them. And what happens if you do self-report, and again, if you get admitted to that college, you accept their offer of admission, they're going to say to you, okay, now send us the official scores, okay, because they want to verify that you've been telling them the truth. Then there are other colleges that say, yeah, we don't like that self-reporting thing. We want you to send the official scores. And again, find out what the deadline is. Some schools might say, oh, our deadline is November 1st for applications, but we'll accept test scores through November 30th. Other schools might say, our application deadline is November 1st, and that's when we want to receive your test scores. And you would think in today's day and age of technology that you could push a button and they receive them immediately. They don't. There is, I don't know what it is anymore. It might be faster, but it used to be up to 2 weeks to receive a test score once you request it from College Board or the ACT. So just, again, this is where you need to have all your ducks in a row. And again, sometimes AP scores can be important. They might ask about them. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so just showing you again, this is a screenshot from the Common App. Under the testing tab, this is what it says. It says, in addition to sending scores as required by colleges, do you wish to self-report scores or future test dates? And they list all sorts of things. ACT, SAT, I don't know why they say subject test. They haven't offered subject tests in years, etc. And if you say yes, then you list all the different scores. If you say, oh, I'm going to be taking AP Calculus BC senior year, and I am planning to take the test. So remember, colleges get that information. And if in senior year, you're like, I don't want to take it, you need to notify the college. Again, most of them will be maybe okay with it. But again, a more selective school might say, what's wrong with you? we thought you're taking this seriously, blah, 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 blah. So if you change things that you tell them on the college application, you need to communicate with colleges. And as you heard me say the other day, a lot of students, feel pretty good about themselves with their grades and their rigor and their test scores, and they think that guarantees things. Remember what I said the other day? It does not. Just a reminder about, it's not that students aren't qualified. The term highly selective college means too many qualified students applying for too few of spots. And I showed you this on Tuesday. I'm not going to go through it again, but when you look at Johns Hopkins, 26,000 applied and 25,000 were rejected, and MIT, 26,000 applied, 25,000 rejected. I mean, everybody who's applying, or 90+%, all have the grades and the test scores. And the admissions people go, yeah, most of the students who apply, they would thrive on our campus. We just don't have room. So let's talk about the next thing that colleges can ask for. It's your high school activity list. And this is an area personally where I've seen students shine, and it can make a difference. It doesn't make up for grades and rigor in most cases, but it can certainly supplement and improve things. So there's different categories of activities that a student can do. You can do things within your high school. You can do things in the community. You can play sports. You can be involved in things through a religious organization. Colleges do differentiate between extracurricular and volunteer activities. So if you're like, oh, I don't do anything for volunteer, well, lucky you, it's only June 29th or whatever today. So maybe get involved. And again, it doesn't mean you have to spend 40 hours a week, but if there's something that interests you, I'm sure there's a way that you can find a way to volunteer an hour or two, and do it. And again, do something that you actually care about and are interested in. You can have jobs, you can have hobbies and special interests. You can talk about awards that you've received. There's great, it's too late to sign up for WANIC, but the WANIC classes are going on. You can do research, have an internship. And all an internship means, like, you can, if your uncle lives here locally and has maybe you could do something for him. It doesn't have to be this big official thing. It's just getting you some experience, whether it's paid or unpaid, it doesn't make any difference. So what colleges want to know in this activity list is the hours per week and the weeks per year that a student spends on an activity. Because basically what they want to know is, when you're not in school and you're not doing homework, how do you spend your time? That's the purpose of the activity list. And I did a screenshot here. So this is under the activities tab, which is found under the Common App prompt or tab that I talked about. Do you have any activities that you wish to report? Yes. Okay, most students are going to say yes. And this is important. Please list your activities in the order of their importance to you, not to the college, but to you. And I will say, I would advise students to be somewhat strategic here. If you're somebody who's applying to business and you do DECA, I probably wouldn't put DECA at the bottom. Or if you're somebody interested in nursing and you did shadowing at a hospital, again, I wouldn't put it at the very bottom. Try to, because the way the eye works, we start at the top and then we lose interest. And again, they do read these things super quickly. So they're not going to spend a whole lot of time and be like, oh, wow, I see that, they like this or this. So anyways, so what happens is it says activity type. And if you were to click on that live, a pull down menu. Oh, is it research? Is it music based? Is it art based? Is it community based? Is it a sport? Is it, whatever. And then what's your role? Okay, like, are you a member? Are you the founder? Are you, whatever. The name of the organization. And sometimes things are just self-directed, like you might, maybe you write screenplays at home by yourself. Okay, I would just say self-directed. It's just something that you do. And then it says, please describe this activity, including what you've accomplished and any recognition you've received, etc. And there's a character count, maximum character count of 150. That's not very long. Okay, so you don't need to use complete sentences. Certainly use lots of descriptions. I'll be sharing a resource with you in a little bit. The next thing that they ask is, what grades did you participate in these activities? 9, 10, 11, 12, or postgraduate, which would be after you graduated from high school. But most of you are still in high school. Then they want to know, what was the timing? Did you do it during the school year, during school break, which means summer? Or is it something that you do all year? And then they say, what are the hours spent per week and the weeks per year? Be careful with your hours per week on activities. When I review students' activity list, I always do a quick little, I'll usually do a quick little ad. And sometimes I have to say, according to your activity list, you're spending 50 hours a week during the school year while going to school full time. I think you've overestimated. So, do that. And then I intend to participate in a similar activity in college. Okay, don't freak out about this. If you're like, oh my God, I am done with baseball, I don't want to play that anymore, or, whatever, you can say no. The reason why they ask that is that, colleges might say, oh, we'll put this kid on our intramural soccer list and we'll send them information about, or, whatever it is. But if you're done, you're done. Don't worry about it. They don't judge you on that. So there's a great resource called College Essay Guy, and I'll send the link with all the different resources. But this is from him, and it says how to write an amazing activity in your activity list. So you state the role and organization name, emphasize tangible, measurable impact, okay? Use action words. To save space, use lists and cut extra words. No need for complete sentences. Aim for variety, avoid extreme language. And so what I tell students when I'm working with them, some things to think about. Okay, so what was your role? Did you solve any problems? Maybe you're in some sort of a computer science organization and you're like, oh my God, 90% of the members are guys. We need to expand and bring in more females, or something like that. What lessons did you learn? What was the impact that you made? Application to other areas of your life. I was talking with a student the other day, and I was looking at their activity list, and this was a student who was very interested in nutrition. And when I was looking at her list, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't realize you did all the, food bank and food drives and blah, blah, blah. And they also had a food website or something they created. And they said, oh yeah, I started that because of this food bank that I worked at. That's what inspired me. And I was like, that's so cool. You should say that. It is so much more interesting for the person reading it than I am a member of blah, again, it doesn't mean that every activity that you're in, that you're going to have problems solved or impacts made, but hopefully some of them. And you can only do 10, by the way. The Common App only allows 10 activities. So sometimes you have to, group things together. So here's some thoughts. I always tell students, please do not do anything to look good to a college. It comes off so fake because you're not really interested in it. But activities can help differentiate you between students with similar data points. If every kid has a high GPA and high test scores who are applying, maybe your activities will help you stand out. as I talked about on Tuesday, I said sometimes there's direct admit to majors, and your activities can help prove that you deserve a spot in a direct admit program. More importantly, your activities can help you learn if you're on the right path. How are you supposed to know what healthcare is like if you've never had any exposure? So, and then I tell this to students all the time, if it were me, even prior to COVID with, schools being test optional, I would spend especially in the summer, I would spend more time on my activities than I would trying to improve test scores. And it doesn't mean that every activity has to be career oriented. Heck no. But if you know you are interested in a certain major or career, I would hope that at least one of them is. And again, you have time to explore job shadowing or things like that. So, all right, now let's talk about letters of recommendation. And luckily, not all schools require them. None of the Washington State public universities, Cal State public universities, University of California, they don't take them, and that's good. Because I will say, if I were to pick probably second only to essay writing, the things that drive students crazy is the letters of rec, because it does take some work. So there's 3 types of letters of rec that a student or that a college may ask in an application. So there's the counselor recommendation. And just so you know, it is not typically a letter. It's more of a form that the counselor is filling out for the student. Then there's teacher recommendations, and the teachers must have taught the student in high school. Colleges do tend to prefer junior and senior year teachers, and it's because the work is more recent, the work is harder, you're more mature. Now, that doesn't mean you can't ask a younger, a teacher that you had in 10th grade. You probably wouldn't ask anybody from 9th grade because that was your remote year, and most kids didn't really connect with their teachers too much that year, but it's okay. I would try to have at least one, that is more recent. Most kids are going to ask junior year teachers, because when you start senior year, unless it's a teacher you've had before, you don't really know each other, and it takes a while. Some colleges that require teacher recommendations may also allow what's called an outsider, which is basically a non-teacher, and I'll go through those. So, okay, school's out. As I said, the Common App is not open yet for fall 24. So letters of recommendation, even if you've asked for them already, they cannot submit them. If you asked a teacher and you invited them and you got ahead of yourself, what happens is any letters of rec that had been submitted prior to that August 1st deadline, when the Common App goes live for the class of 24, it will be lost. It'll be eliminated. So make sure you don't do anything with that. There is, when you do your very first letter of rec, trying to get all that done, there's going to be a FERPA form. It basically, you have to sign it. You have to say yes. Basically, you're giving up the right to see your letters of recommendation. And if you don't sign off your rights for that, there are a lot of colleges that won't consider your application, because they're like, wait, we don't know what the student's doing, because technically students are not supposed to see their letters of rec prior to hearing about admissions and things like that. So the teachers must have taught you. And typically students ask core teachers, math, science, English, social studies are the main ones. And people say, oh, well, okay, if I'm interested in engineering, do I need to have 2 STEM teachers? No, I would probably recommend 1, but yeah, have your history teacher, English teacher. Again, the key is to ask somebody who you feel knows you the best. And sometimes students say, I don't think any of my students or any of my teachers know me best, because I don't engage, I don't talk, and I get it. It can be very hard. So if you have not yet asked for any letters of rec, when school starts, I'm telling you, don't put it off, for a couple reasons. Teachers do not have to write letters of recommendation. It's above and beyond their job description. They are a ton of work. If you've never written one, it's a good exercise to try to write a letter of rec for somebody. So as soon as school starts, I would go and track down a teacher and ask them if they'd be willing. And it's possible you may hear, oh, sorry, I only write 8 and I was filled up last May, type thing. But you may have teachers who say yes. I hope that you do. And then you can say to them, how would you like me to handle the request? And sometimes there's a form they want filled out and all this stuff. But I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's had to write letters of rec, not, you know, I don't do it often, I can't, but it is so helpful if the student were to say, hey, I realize this is a lot to do. Would it be helpful to you if maybe I stopped by school a little before school starts, or stayed after class, you know, stayed after school, came on your lunch hour or whatever, and spent like 10 or 15 minutes with you so you can ask me any questions? Because again, teachers maybe only know you from one side, you know, they know you from your class, but and this is where I would bring them a copy of my activity list so they can see all the things that I'm involved in, and they could ask questions, and that will allow them to write a much more personal letter of rec. So just know that, be organized. And what I mean by that is, and I'll be showing you some slides here, you have to stay on top of these. If they're required, they typically have to be in by the application deadline. And so you got to be paying attention to that. And teachers are humans, they're busy, they got classes, they have families, might have crying babies or sick parents, or who knows what's going on in their life. But you have to stay on top of it. It's very important. And that you're kind. As I said, teachers do not have to do this. You should be bending over backwards, giving them thank you notes. If you can make some cookies or brownies for them, bring them in, thank them, be gracious. It goes a long way. So this is what a form could look like. I think in the counseling office of all the high schools, they have some sort of a form. Again, these are fairly generic. In my opinion, I think it would be hard. I mean, this is a good start, but I think it's hard. And that's why personally, if I was asking somebody to write me a letter of rec, I would offer, okay, would it be helpful to you to talk to me for, 5-10 minutes, whatever, just to get some more information. And I think it would make it easier for the teachers. So how do you invite recommenders? So again, this is from the Common App. There's a button that says invite teachers, and you have to fill in the email address. You can say what subject, first name, last name, and it might, for a specific college, like this was University of Michigan, would you like this teacher to complete an evaluation for your University of Michigan application? And you're going to say yes. But anyways, then you invite them. And then what happens is immediately the Common App sends that teacher an email that says, Mary Pat O'Neill has invited you to write them a letter of rec. And this is why you need to talk to them first. Don't invite them without talking to them, because it could irritate them. Like, what do you mean? I didn't agree to write the student a letter of rec. Okay, so again, this is University of Michigan. I'm using as an example. There's this recommender and FERPA. Remember, I talked about that FERPA. Once you click that button and sign it for one, it applies to every single college that you're using the Common App for. But if you look at this, it says required 1, optional 3. So we know 1 + 3 is 4. Now, does this mean you have to have 4 letters of rec? No. However, I do say to students, because I know these things are a pain, they're lots of work. Especially for the more selective schools, if you have the opportunity to allow someone to say nice things about you, you should do it. Again, highly selective, too many qualified students. And sometimes when I'm talking with students and they're like, oh, I got deferred from Michigan. And I'll say, yeah, how many letters of rec did you send? Well, 1. And really, you couldn't ask for more, because kids don't like to do it, but it can pay off, especially if you've got teachers who really like you and have things to say about you. So this is my practice account. So you can see Tim O'Neill is my math teacher. Margaret O'Neill is my science teacher, and Mary Pat O'Neill is my English teacher. So again, this is where you can tell the status, okay? So you can see for Tim O'Neill, I sent him the invitation on August 10th, and it shows me it's not started, okay? Now, Margaret O'Neill also sent it on August 10th. She started it, okay? And then, of course, Mary Pat O'Neill also sent it on the 10th. She submitted it because she's very organized and on top of things. So this is how you're going to be able to check up and see. So let's say, it's a month later, getting closer to the, it's end of September. So I might go up to Tim O'Neill and say, hey, Mr. O'Neill, thanks again so much for your willingness to write me a letter of rec. I was, I'm trying to stay on top of things. And I noticed your application, your letter of rec has not yet been started. Did you receive it? And he might go, oh, yeah. You know what, could you resend that to me? My wife had a baby, super busy in our house. I'm not sleeping at all at night. So this little curly Q thing here, if you click on that, it'll say, oh, you want to resend it? Yes, and you'll resend it. Now, Margaret O'Neill, Miss O'Neill, you go and you talk to her and you say, hey, I was checking and I saw you started it. Thank you so much, because I know this is so much work. It's not yet been submitted. And Miss O'Neill might say, oh, yes, we have a 3-day weekend. I'm going to complete all of my letters of rec by, let's say, October 15th. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then on your calendar, you put a reminder that on October 16th, you're going to check. And if it hasn't been submitted, then you have to go back, and maybe cookies will help. But you have to go back and you have to follow through. It's a pain in the tailbone, but you have to do it. So please know that. Now, here's another one. This is University of Southern California. This one's different. It says required 0, optional 1. So you don't have to send any, but you could send one. And again, especially if you've got them, because what the Common App is, it's a platform. They're all collected in there. So then what you do is you assign. It says assign a teacher, and I think it's my next slide. So this is what will happen when I hit the pull down menu and say, oh, do you want Tim O'Neill's, Margaret O'Neill's, Mary Pat O'Neill? Whose letter of rec do you want? Because you can only send one. And this does get tricky, because technically you probably have not seen them. You're going to have to kind of make a determination which one you think is going to be best. And that's all you can do, is just do your best at it. Then there is what's called other recommenders. And again, it depends on the college. Some colleges will allow other recommenders in addition to teachers, and some don't. The key is they're almost never required. I don't know that I've ever seen a required other recommender. They're always optional. And this is, again, back to Michigan. They allow 2. But when you pull it down, it shows you the categories that are allowed for another recommender. So for here, it's an arts teacher. This could be an actual art, drawing, whatever. It could be a musical art, clergy, a coach, college access counselor. What that is, a college access counselor is somebody who works with underserved populations who would not normally probably be applying to college. So it's a very special category. Employer, again, it could be an internship. It doesn't have to be a paid employer. And then other, well, other could be your grandmother, your best friend, your next door neighbor that you babysit for, or whatever. So, so again, same thing. You can see that it was sent on August 10th, has not started. So again, just something to check up on. So, okay, then the college essay. So not all schools require them. And we're going to talk more, obviously, tomorrow's session is the essay. But this is where a student's activities are so powerful. It's in the essay writing, because again, you only have 150 characters to describe what you did in an activity on the activity list. But on the essay, you can go into a lot more detail. It's a very different style of writing. It's conversational, it's storytelling, and your goal is to tell a story that you're the only person in the world who can tell it, which I realize sounds very intimidating, but it's very doable, and hopefully you'll learn that tomorrow. This is where they're looking for a student's character and personal quality. You need to be the center of the universe, and again, to learn more, show up tomorrow. But as I said, not all colleges require the college essay. So this is going back to the Common App, a screenshot. On the Common App tab, one of the very last tabs on the left, it says writing. And this says, here is a list of colleges on your dashboard and whether they require the personal essay. Because I think a lot of times students think, oh, they use the Common App, I have to write a personal essay. No, there are colleges that even though they use the Common App, they're not going to look at your personal essay. So here you can see American University, Loyola Marymount, CLU, Boulder, University of Denver. Yeah, they require it. But not required, Arizona State, University of Washington, Washington State, Western. So just, University of Washington does require essays. and I'll explain this tomorrow, but they don't use the Common App prompts. So it's a separate thing. And Western, same thing. They actually have an essay, but they don't use the Common App prompts to it. But so let's say you want to apply to Washington State or Arizona State, and you're like, well, I've got everything done except that silly essay that I'm really putting off. You can apply. I think August 1st is when the applications open. And for both those schools, they use what's called rolling admissions, which I'll explain in a minute. So get it in, you know, why not send in your application? You'll find out fairly quickly that you're admitted. You might find out if you get scholarship money, and it's just done. You do not have to wait for the essay, because they don't look at it. There's other schools, University of Arizona, Clemson, things like that. They don't look at the essay, so you can get those in. Okay, there is a great source of information, and I am going to try to do this live. But last year, something called the Axis Companion came out, and you can see AXS Companion, and it's a free resource, and it's just to help students on how to complete the Common App. So let's see if I can do this. There we go. Did it work? Yay, it worked. Okay, so and I'm not going to go through it all, but this just kind of shows you all the different steps. And if you've got questions like how to create an account, how to write about your family, testing, writing, college search, supplemental essays, your profile, all the different things. And they've got little videos. It's super cool. It's great. So, all right, now let's see. How do I get back here? Oh, all right. Stop share. Share again. Okay. Yeah, I made some progress with my technology today, but it's a great resource, and that'll be in the notes that I send out. Now, most college application deadlines are due in November. It's a very common month. They can stretch longer. You know, there's some in December, there might be some in January, but for the most part, November is a very popular month. And that's why it's good to get started on this stuff, because once senior year starts, time can get away with you. So there's different deadlines that colleges have, and I apologize because this can get confusing. So first of all, there's early decision. What early decision means, and just so you know, it depends on the college, what deadlines are offered. There are some colleges that might have all of these, or 3 of them, or 2 of them. Then there are some that only have 1 deadline and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. But so early decision is not offered by every school, not by a long shot. But what it is a binding contract. The application is typically submitted in November. It's usually November 1st or November 15th. And there's a contract that has to be signed by the student, by the parents, by the school counselor. Everybody says, we agree, we understand that this is a binding decision. And you will hear early, typically by sometime in December, you will hear whether or not you were accepted early decision. And if you are accepted, you have said, yes, I understand that I will be going. This is used more with highly selective schools. Not all of them, but again, some of them do. Colleges like it because they know they've got those students. They know they're filling up their class. If financial aid is an issue for you, where you're like, well, I'd love to go to the school, but if I can get into UW's computer science program and pay in-state tuition, that would be better. Don't do early decision, because you are making that commitment. Again, and you can only apply to 1 school. You can only apply to 1 school early decision. Now, if you don't get in early decision, there are some early decision 2 deadlines, and then you can apply early decision 2, but just know it's just 1 school. Then there's early action. Deadlines are due around the same time. They're usually November. I love early action for students who are organized or strong applicants. The application pool is going to be smaller because not everybody's organized and on top of things. But if you can be, and you can submit a strong application, go early action. And a lot of schools offer this. The difference is it's not binding. So you can apply to as many schools that offer it, and you still have until May 1st to make your decision. But it's kind of nice, takes the pressure off. You can, if you're going to get scholarship money, they'll tell you, but you got your time, and it takes the pressure, and then you can wait for other things. Then there's what's called regular decision. Now, for some schools, all they offer is regular decision, and that would be the University of Washington, that would be University of California, Cal State. They have one deadline. UW's is November 15th. And if you are disorganized and forget to submit by the 15th, you're out of luck, okay? And FYI, the deadline is 11:59 p.m., your time zone. Do not wait until then, but at the same point, don't apply too early, because you can't typically change your application at all once you submit it. So you do want to make sure, don't submit on September 1st, because you might find out that things change. And then rolling decision just simply means that as a college accepts in applications, they process them, they tell a student there's no waiting. Like UW, University of Washington, has a November 15th deadline. They don't notify anybody till early March. Whereas with rolling, as they get through them, they notify students. And rolling, I always, schools that have rolling, Washington State does rolling, Arizona State, University of Arizona, Northern Arizona, it's great. And again, University of Portland, it can just help a student. They're like, oh, thank goodness I got admitted. And the sooner you do it, there's more scholarship money available earlier. So again, if scholarships are something that you're looking for, I would recommend sooner than later. So as I said earlier, stay organized, keep calm, ask parents for help. What do you do after submitting your applications? Because you're done and you might think, oh, I'm done, but there is more work to involve. Check your emails. Many colleges use portals to communicate, and so they'll send you a link. You have to get your password and all this stuff like that, and they're usually sent out within 1 to 5 days. And that portal may be how they might tell you, oh, you're missing information on your application, we can't process it without it. Or that may be how they notify you if you've been admitted or not. So pay attention to that. Remember that your senior grades count, and make sure to take classes of rigor. If you planned your schedule for senior year and you're like, oh, I want to go to UW, but junior year wore me out, so I'm just going to take easy peasy classes. Don't do that, please. When school starts, change your schedule, because a lot of colleges very much care about that rigor. And if you're not taking it, it may hurt your chances. As I said, May 1st is college decision day. So I'm going to open it up to questions now, if you have any. Tomorrow's session is the longer session. It's how to write a college essay. It's about 2 hours, and I'm always happy to answer any questions about any of the sessions. Just to repeat for anybody who maybe signed in after 10 o'clock this morning, yes, this is being recorded. Yes, the recording will be sent out. It will not be sent out till sometime next week. And again, with the 4th of July holiday, it'll probably be later in the week, but there will be handouts, resources, and all that kind of stuff. So if I can answer any questions, let me see what we have here. Okay, so the first question is, what's a cumulative GPA? A cumulative GPA is starting in 9th grade. A student's each semester, you get a GPA. You've got 7 classes, whatever that averages out to, and then that number is averaged with the next semester, and it just keeps going on. And if you took the way that the district works, is if any high school classes taken in middle school, which would be Algebra 1, Geometry, and foreign languages, if you took those in middle school, they're automatically placed on your transcript. Unfortunately, it's my understanding that let's say you got C's in geometry or Algebra 2 or Spanish because you were in middle school and you didn't understand the importance. You're stuck, is my understanding, that you can't have them taken off your transcript prior to senior. You only have till junior year, and it's over with now. So anyway, so on your unofficial transcript on Skyward, it'll say cumulative GPA. So every semester, a student gets a GPA for that semester, but it's all added and averaged out. So yes, colleges look at your grades in senior year. Some colleges ask for a mid-year report, and it's nothing that the student sends. They contact the school counselor and they send them out. And then others will so again, let's say you decide to go to UW, you applied to UW, you got admitted to UW, you choose to go to UW. And, senioritis is real. I've had 2 kids of my own. I understand it. And let's say your A's and B's start becoming C's and D's in some classes, or you withdraw from a class, whatever. There's very much a chance, because UW cares so much about rigor and grades and all that, that if they see that, they could say, oh, we've changed our mind. So yes, grades count, very much so. Do we have to send in our AP scores? No, you do not send in your AP scores on a college application. You can self-report them. And I always get the question, well, I only got a 3. And again, it depends on the school. 3s are great. 3s passing. Now, to Harvard, a 3 might not be great, but to a lot of other schools it would be. If you're not, if you're not sure, you don't have to report your AP scores. And there's on College Board, there's a page that shows what AP scores a college will accept. There are some schools that only accept 5s. There are some schools that are happy to accept 3s, some takes 4s. Again, it depends. And you can submit, like, say one school, you're like, oh, my 3s look great, I'm sending my 3s in. And then others, you can take them off and send them in without. You can just keep submitting. It's very, very flexible. But you don't want to send your AP scores into the colleges you're applying to. And the reason why is they charge money. Okay, there's a fee involved every time you send in your AP scores. And the only school that cares about your AP scores ultimately is the college you're going to attend. So once you know the college you're attending, then you send those official scores, but just one set to that college, not to all of them. Do colleges only look at your semester grades? Yes, they do not look at quarter grades. So, again, if you have not a crummy first quarter, then you say, oh, maybe I need to meet with the teacher, get a study group, find a tutor or whatever. And yeah, they only look at the quarter or the semester grades. If you're doing extra clubs at school, are we allowed to ask the coordinator for teacher recs? Only if that teacher taught you in high school. And that can be a great letter of rec, because that teacher knows you multiple sides. They know you as a student, they know you as part of the club. But if a college allows outside recommenders, let's say the club advisor never taught you in high school, they can't be a teacher rec, but they could be an outsider rec. So again, it depends on the school. Do we need to add colleges to the Common App? So let me see if I can. Let me see how I can do this. Yeah. Okay. So when you open up the Common App, there is a whole bunch of tabs. Okay. First one says dashboard. Next one says my colleges. The next one says Common App. And that's where you start. That's the data section. And then I think the next one is college search. So what you do is you go to the college search, and let's say you want University of Washington. You type it in there, and then it says add to my list. So then you do that. Or if you want University of Oregon or Gonzaga or Loyola Marymount or University of San Diego, whatever, and then you just keep adding it. They won't allow you to put more than 20 schools on the Common App, just so you know. So that's how you do it. Let's see here. Let's see. We don't see your other screen. I don't know what you mean by that. When would you recommend that we finish the resume for college apps? Well, you're kind of a work in progress. Like I tell a lot of my students, like even with their college essays, they may not know what they're writing about yet because it hasn't happened yet. Like, summer just started. Some kids are doing pretty exciting things. I would start it, and and if you're in the middle, let's say you've got a cool internship, you're going to some program, or you got a summer job or whatever, you can get most of it done and then complete it. But by the time, when you're submitting your applications, it should be done. And again, that's typically going to be in the fall. So, but I would certainly start working on it. And again, think about the language that you're using. Someone asked about my opinion on the Supreme Court ruling today. I have not had a chance. I'm a big proponent of underserved populations. I'm not a very political person. However, if you want so first of all, like in the state of Washington, colleges are not allowed to see race at all, even though it's on the Common App. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's one of the boxes. It's redacted. So if you want a college to understand where you're coming from, I would make sure I write about it in an essay so that it's part of your story. But I have been very busy this week. Oh, can letters of rec be reused for different colleges? Yes, yes. They're not, so letters of rec are not specific. Dear University of Michigan, dear Gonzaga, dear MIT. They're not. They it's a generic, it's dear college or whatever, I am writing a letter of recommendation for, Mary Pat O'Neill. Remember I showed, so what happens is in the Common App, they're collected. Okay, it's a platform. So every letter of rec that you have written is there. And teachers don't know, like, don't worry, like if you go, oh my God. And I've had this happen with kids where they say, oh, my teacher showed me the letter of rec. Because sometimes the teacher will say, hey, do you want to see your letter of rec? And if they do, say, yeah. Again, technically, you're not supposed to see it. That's what the FERP is about. But, if someone wants to show it to you, I don't care. Anyways, and I've had kids go, oh my God, it's not a great letter of rec. And I'm on the, I'm a volunteer judge on the district PTSA scholarship. And I have part of the application are letters of rec. And some teachers write amazing letters of rec. And some I refer to as a Mad Lib, where it's just kind of a fill in the blank and they're not great. So teachers don't actually know if you use it. I mean, it's there in the platform, but then you assign. Remember, I showed you that it said, oh, Tim O'Neill, Mary Pat O'Neill, Margaret O'Neill, who, which you assign one, because if a college only allows one and you've got 3 letters of rec, you can only send them one, and you got to pick which one it is, which can be harder if you don't see them. But you should have a sense of, wow, this teacher loves me. Man, we have lunch together once a week. We had our lunch, whatever it is. You get a sense. So no, it's just they just write one letter of recommendation and it's uploaded. That's why you don't see it when you invite them. The teacher gets a link and they upload it. It's a very simple process. Okay. I've heard that some colleges do A- grades for below 95, but above 90. Will it hurt a transcript or GPA calculation? Well, again, that's why I said don't worry about it. I mean, our students, students in Lake Washington are blessed, I guess, with the sense that the district does not give out A-. There's A's, so 90 and above. And that's why I always tell younger students, pay attention. If you're at 89.9 and you get a B+, not a bad grade, but it's a 0.7 drop in GPA. And then kids in Bellevue district, they don't have pluses or minus. I mean, every district does things differently. They are going to recalculate, as pretty much every college, when they get their transcript, they're going to recalculate it based on their own methodology. So yeah, if you got a 90 and they change, they count that as an A-, yeah, it'll change their calculation. Is it enough to get you not admitted? I don't know. It depends on the college. But that's why we have a balanced list, and you apply to a variety of schools that interest you. And there's a whole bunch of different reasons. I remember years ago, my daughter's almost 28 now. She graduated in 2014 and she had a 3.8 GPA. And back in those days, the district would rank students, and what they would do. So, and just, you may be asked about class rank. You just write not available, because in Lake Washington, we don't rank students. So if they don't rank them, you can't provide it. Anyways, so what they would do is senior year, first quarter, English class or something, they would come around with these little envelopes, and then you'd find out where you were. And my daughter was frustrated because she took pretty rigorous classes. She was a STEM kid, and she was like in the 75th percentile, 80th percentile, whatever it was. And she's like, I gotta tell you, drives me crazy. There's all these kids with 4.0s, but they're not pushing themselves. They're not taking AP Bio and AP Chem and AP Calc and whatever. And I said to her, I wasn't even a college counselor at the time, but I said, colleges pay attention to all that. And I said, you're going to get into colleges that kids with 4.0s don't get into. And I was right. And so just don't worry about it. Just be you. If they choose to give you an A-, that's their right, because they go and they recalculate it, and there's nothing you can do. And if you're not admitted, you never know why, if it's that or something else. do I recommend applying to UW early in September? I mean, if you can, but I would make sure, I mean, you don't get a benefit. It helps, I guess it helps UW out. They can start reading applications sooner. But as far as, are you going to find out sooner? No. You know, again, once you know everything is accurate and all that, sure, you can. There's no harm done. But sometimes, you know, like I remember I had a student who was, he thought 100% that he should have, because he, on his application to UW, he did not submit his AP scores. And he was freaking out. So he submitted in November, and January he's like, I need to submit my scores. I need to submit my scores. And I'm like, I don't think you can. And I said, plus UW doesn't look at it. No, everybody tells me UW cares. So I reach out to admissions to see, and they're like, we don't look at AP scores in admissions, and they don't. So again, if you're 100%, you've checked it over 15 times, had other people look at it, make sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted, or I think I said that backwards. But anyways, yeah, go ahead and submit, but you won't hear any sooner. So just know that. Let's see, anything else here? Okay, if we have poor freshman and sophomore grades, but did great junior year and have extracurriculars, how will that impact my college application? Again, it's going to depend on the college. Now, class of 24, your COVID remote year was 9th grade. And so what colleges like to see is either this with grades or this with grades. What they don't know, what they never like is this. Okay. And as I mentioned, there's a spot on the college application. It's actually in the writing section on the Common App tab. It just says, hey, there's a couple. There's a, hey, were you impacted by COVID? Or, hey, is there anything else about you we should know? And if you have a story to tell, and I'll talk more about this tomorrow at the, when we talk about the essay, you know, for instance, I had a student who in 9th grade was in Algebra 2. And I can tell you from talking to many students throughout this whole period, including COVID, remote learning wasn't great for students, and it particularly wasn't great in math. Math did not teach well remotely. And so when the student went back to high school in person in 10th grade and was in honors pre-calculus, they hadn't learned Algebra 2. And that's why I'm not a big fan of kids jumping ahead in math and all stuff like that, because it's so foundational. It builds on each other and all that stuff. That's a whole different story to talk about. So in their honors pre-calculus class, the student bombed. And this is a strong student who's always done well. And she ended up the semester with a C- in honors pre-calculus. She got out of honors, went to regular, got a tutor, and all this stuff like that. Grades went back up. She is going to use that spot of, is there anything else about you we should know? So if you have a story to tell, if there's a reason, mental health issues, family issues, whatever, things like that, you can explain it, and you can hope that the trajectory of your grades is enough. Sometimes I've seen students who maybe do take standardized tests, even if a college may not look at them, but just say, I know you don't look at them, but I don't think my grades reflect my ability. I've done so much better. I did take the ACT or the SAT, and and if they're strong scores, again, you can say, in my AP testing, I got 5s or whatever. You just don't know. And some colleges, again, it depends on the school. They will allow admission interviews. Again, UW doesn't, the UCs don't, but especially some of the smaller schools. And so setting up an interview with admissions so that you can tell your story and explain the trajectory and how it's changed, that can be very powerful. So it really is going to depend on your college list. I mean, again, if your cumulative GPA, I'm just going to make numbers up here. So at UW, the majority of students, close to, I haven't seen this year's numbers, but usually it's close to 70% of admitted students have an unweighted GPA of a 3.75 or higher. And so if your GPA is a 3.3 because of freshman, sophomore, it's highly, even with a great junior year, even with explaining the circumstances, it's highly unlikely that a school will allow you in. and again, that's where I say, be realistic, have that balanced list. So I don't know if I answered your question, but there's different ways to approach that, and good on you, and have a strong senior year. And actually, I've had kids, so like you won't have first semester grades typically when you apply senior year, but I've had kids write in that additional information. Hey, at the end of my first quarter, I got all A's in my classes. I'm doing so well. I'm so proud. Like you can say stuff like that. Again, it's being read by a human being, and it might make a difference. Might not, but again, that's why you don't want to just apply to the most selective schools, because you want to have a balanced list. Okay, if I'm doing running start, how should I report my classes for senior year? Okay, good question. So I realize you can't sign up for your classes. You can sign up for first quarter, but you can't sign up for winter or spring yet. However, you should have an idea, and you should tell them what you're planning to take. And so let's say you're planning to take, I don't know the numbers at running start, but let's say you're planning to take a biology class, okay? Second quarter, and you're like, I'm going to take bio 210. And for whatever reason, when you go to sign up for it, you can't. So you're like, okay, I'll take bio 215. That's not a big deal. Okay, you don't need to explain anything to colleges. But let's say you're like, oh my God, I can't get into bio class. I'm going to take, I'll take a PE class. I'll work out instead. You better communicate that with a college. And the reason is, what you put on your application, they hold you to. So if, let's say it's UW, you apply, you're admitted, then they get your final transcript. And keep in mind that your running start transcript becomes part of your college transcript. So if you're planning to go to medical school or law school or something like that, however you do in running start, that's part of your transcript for graduate school. And so you want to make sure you treat it seriously and that you do well. But anyways, so if they say, wait a minute, this kid said they're taking bio 210 and they took, weightlifting 101. So if that's going to happen, that's where you want to be proactive and reach out and say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't get it. I would probably recommend, okay, maybe you try for a chemistry class or a physics class, some sort of a science class of similar rigor. Or if you're like, I'm just so sorry, I got sick and something happened, but you know what, third quarter, I'm going to take, and make sure that you do, because they do care about that stuff. And that's why, I've had kids who say, once I submit my college applications, can I drop all these AP classes? No, honey, you can't. So, stick with it. They do pay attention. If your teacher is willing to write, a college specific letter of rec, I don't know, why would they? That doesn't make any sense, unless it's because they went there, but I don't know why that would make a difference to a college. So technically, letters of rec can be mailed in. Most people don't do it anymore. Or again, if Miss Jones is going to write a specific letter of rec to the University of Michigan, okay, then when you assign to the University of Michigan, you assign that letter to the University of Michigan, but you make sure you don't send it to NYU or Carnegie Mellon or Georgia Tech. It works. You can do whatever you want. I don't know why a teacher would write a specific letter of rec to a college, but they could. You just have to make sure you don't make the mistake of sending that letter to Purdue or something like that when it says Dear University of Michigan. So that's why I don't recommend that. But so if you want to find out what colleges admit freshmen direct, you got to do your research. I don't really know of a list per se, but again, you shouldn't be having a 50 colleges on your college list. It should be manageable, 10 whatever. If it's let's say it's computer science or nursing or something, you go to the school's website and you type in computer science or whatever the major is, and it'll tell you how are students admitted. And if you're not sure, either reach out to Well, one way you can tell is if it's not direct admit, it'll say requirements to be admitted, and it'll say, you know, these are the classes in college a student has to take, blah, 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 and certain GPAs. But if you're not sure, either reach out to the advisor for the program. There's always that type of contact information on a website, or reach out to admissions and say, do you admit directly into whatever major? And if they say, and if the answer is yes, how difficult is it? Again, there are some schools that, like, if you want computer science, they're like, yeah, we do direct admit. And if you check the box, as long as, let's say, you've done the math requirements that we require, you're in, no big deal. And then others say, oh, we have a 5% acceptance rate. Again, that's going to make a huge difference. So you're going to have to do some work on that. I think I'm just about done. Yes, I am done. So anyways, I thank everybody for coming today, and hope you enjoy the day. And tomorrow will be long. Bring a snack or a beverage with you, and we're going to be talking about how to write college essays. So thank you.